I had somebody in an interview ask that, when was the last time that you had sex and what kind of contraception did you use, to try to test if they were really like sleeping together, which feels like not the government's business.
Welcome to Should We Get Married?
My name is Emily Carter.
My name is Maxson and Emily.
And in this podcast, we're trying to figure out if we should get legally married.
Or stay dating forever.
What's up with people playing it so cool these days?
Today's guest is immigration lawyer Julia Funke, and we're trying to understand if and how getting married helps me get Maxson's EU citizenship. And we also talked to Julia about the love test, which is a very fascinating topic that Julia has a lot of experience with.
All right, let's get into it. Okay, we talk about green card marriages. We talk about my German citizenship somehow applying to Emily more easily if we get married. So we talk about the love test. And yeah, Julia's awesome. She has actually truly moved the needle for us on our decision making. Julia is a professional rummager through people's emotional lives, looking through their camera rolls, looking through their journals, figuring out what pictures they have taped up on their fridge. Like, that's what Julia does. And that's
She's an accredited professional snoop.
Yeah. And Emily's
My dream.
Dream job.
I have a real boner for snooping.
She really does. And another thing, I feel like we want to acknowledge that our conversation is a very lucky conversation to have. Emily and I both have United States citizenship. I'm lucky to have EU citizenship. There are many people who are trying very hard to have residency in the United States or trying very hard to have residency in the EU. And we're just really lucky to be able to have this conversation and have it not be a make or break situation for our livelihoods. We're lucky that we get to do this as infotainment. And for many people, it's a way bigger deal than just infotainment. This is part of our decision making, but it's not like, if we had to remain in the United States, that's probably okay for the time being.
Yeah.
And with that, let's get into the Julia conversation. Take it away, Julia.
Will you tell us who you are and what you do, Julia?
Sure. So my name is Julia Funke. I'm an immigration attorney. I do all sorts of immigration. So I do humanitarian relief, employment-based. But the crux of my practice, especially as of late with the current environment, is like family reunification and largely marriage-based immigration.
We have heard a lot about like green card marriages. I just have heard about it in pop culture and movies and books since I was a kid. Can you define that? Like, what is that?
Yeah, I think there's two definitions. So there's what a green card based on marriage is. And then there's this term like a green card marriage, which I think sometimes gets thrown around sort of negatively, right? When you hear it used negatively is usually the implication that the marriage is for the green card. When people throw that around as like, oh, it's a green card marriage. Like the reason they got married was for the green card. And certainly that happens. I like to think that that's rare though. And certainly not the kinds of cases that I take on. I mean, if you're in an international relationship, that's just like a natural consequence that there will be paperwork so that that person can live and work in the United States.
And are people at times paying for this? I've heard people being like, oh, I like purchased green card. I was able to meet someone who was sort of offering their capability to marry for some price. Like, what, given your proximity to this world, like, what do you know about that?
What do I know about that? Yeah. Ooh, what a question. Well, so certainly none of my clients, right? I only take on cases that I think are valid, real relationships. And I ask a lot of questions to ascertain that beforehand because as a licensed attorney, certainly don't want to be involved in anything like that. However, spending all of my time working with immigrant communities, I certainly hear about the same things that you hear about. That's something that I think that happens, right?
What are the going rates right now?
So I've seen it all. I've had a case come to me where they had a pass denial where a spouse had accused them during a divorce and went and told immigration he had paid me for this green card and said that he paid her $500 and he won a defamation suit. He sued her for defamation and he won. But then later he was married and trying to get his green card through a very real relationship, has U.S. citizen children. And they kept bringing up this past case on the basis previously there was marriage fraud. And one of the legal arguments that I made very professionally in a brief was that no one would sponsor someone for a green card for $500.
Yeah.
Do you have proof that this payment was ever made? And it's just completely implausible. I mean, people will throw out numbers, right? Tens of thousands of dollars, $30,000, because it's not like a short-term commitment. And there's a lot involved in it. And certainly, I think not something that people should do.
You said, oh, none of my clients do that. I don't work on that. I wouldn't work on that.
Yeah.
Like, why
How
not?
would I know?
Like, no, but like, why not?
Because, well, so first of all,
Like, because you would get in trouble?
it's illegal. so first of all, I'd like to stay licensed so that I can continue to help people who are really in love.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, like when I meet a couple and they come to me and they're asking about the process, there's questions that I'm asking. How long have you been together? And it's not that if they tell me like, 3 weeks, that I'm going to not take that case. People do fall in love quickly, but I want to make sure that it's a valid, legitimate marriage. If it's not, or if I had some sort of inclination that there was payment involved or that it was sort of a marriage of convenience for getting a green card, that would also, which I wouldn't take. But if someone does take on a case like that, it's going to be a lot more work because you have to prove a lot.
Mm.
Even if you somehow manufacture all the documentation that you need to show this real relationship, to show that you've been living together, to commingle all of your finances so that you can show that it's all these traditional things that the government looks at to see that it's real marriage, they still have to go to an interview.
Mm-hmm.
The risk is very high.
Let's get into the love test of it all. Like,
Sure.
You mentioned the government, if you are trying to come to America, I'm sure also other countries out there do the same thing. They try their best to figure out if you have a quote unquote real relationship, if you really are in love, if you really are a like family unit. Can you try and just define what this, what's the test called? Is it even accurate for me to call it like a love test? And then
It's not traditionally called a love test, but since I've met you, I'm just going to only refer to it as a love test because I like it better. They call it bona fide marriage. They want to know that it's like a real marriage. What they look at is, do you live together? Is there cohabitation? Is there commingling of finances? Have you met each other's families? Things like that. They'll look at pictures, how long you've been together. So I always tell clients, I think pictures are the best evidence. It's also the cutest evidence. So then, when people give pictures over the years where you can see them at like family holidays, it like really builds this life together. So recently for cases that I'm filing, I'm telling people I need to see joint insurance. I'm asking them to like pull up your emergency contact to show that you're like each other's emergency contact.
Yeah.
So things that they're looking for lately, I've had a lot of officers say this to me. They want to see joint liability. And I fundamentally disagree because I don't think people should have to commingle finances if they don't want to. I don't think that we live in that world anymore. I think it's perfectly fair for a couple to decide that they want to keep their finances separately. Like maybe they have a joint account that they use for vacations or bills or whatever. But I think that's a totally practical way to enter into a marriage and decide to keep it all separate. And the government is sort of forcing the hand.
Yeah. I find this so interesting. And the government's like all up in your like bank accounts telling you how to split these things. This is like next level. It's like
so nuts. It's so nuts.
Totally. Yeah. There's something like Black Mirror if I like think about it too hard. But it's like a shorthand for what we're hoping to get at, which is like, are you building a life together? But I don't know.
What I think makes me the most mad about it, but the government is really setting that as a hard line. Like we want to see joint financial responsibility and liability. I think because there's a lot of things that you could fake if they're looking at fraud, right? You could you could go and take pictures together, but like mingling your finances together.
Yeah. There's something unfair about like not having to deal with this and then getting to make all these decisions about how you want to be independent or together and then being forced into a specific structure of it.
And it also just feels really superficial to me where it's like, this could be a totally real relationship. And then I'm going to ask them to go make a joint account to get you a statement printed out so that you'll approve this. It's just like bullshit paperwork for the sake of putting it in a file.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what they're doing lately.
That's so annoying. In terms of the love test for figuring out the bona fide marriage, I feel like there are a bunch of different examples of the government or these officers asking for really weird stuff. Can you run us through a bunch of those that you can pull out of your head?
So I had a couple come to me. I didn't file their case, but I had sort of consulted with them. I gave myself a number. I was like, let me know. Like, if you need help, just call me. And they did call. And so they had separated them and put them in different rooms. And they just asked lots of very personal questions. The last time they had slept together, what kind of contraception do you use? They ask about tattoos and they just ask a lot of questions. And when they do it separately, so it's just you in a room with an officer, that's super intimidating. And like the girl was crying, right? And I wouldn't want to be like in a closed room with a male officer asking these questions of you that feel really intimate and personal. I would hate that. I was angry because I felt like it wouldn't have happened if they'd had an attorney there. Because the other concern is when they put you in separate rooms, they'll ask you the same question to see if you answer differently.
Yeah.
they asked, do you have a dishwasher? It was great because the wife was like, no. And the husband was like, yeah, I don't know where it is though. He said, my wife, that's what he said. He goes, I don't know where it is. My wife does the dishes. And I was like, your wife's the dishwasher. but like ask them all these, who showered first this morning? Like ask them all these questions, see if they'd answer differently, and made them draw things to see if they would draw the layout of their house the same, which I don't know. It's hard because I'm like, if you put my husband on the spot, would he like correctly remember where certain things are? I don't know. And you're in a high stress environment.
Totally.
So this reminds me of just the most high stakes version of the Newlyweds Game. And it also reminds me of the most high stakes version of that weird TikTok trend where it's like, who gets angry more easily? Who's messier? Who's blah, blah, blah. And the couple's like pointing to the person. Except this is like a uniformed officer. Interrogating you. It's
and
totally
you're
nuts.
Automatically nervous just because you're there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gotten a little bit out of control.
Tell us about the couple you were saying before we started recording. You started to get into that.
Yeah. So right now there are 19 countries that are on a travel ban. And I guess President Trump is going to expand that, they're saying, to 32. So it's been a little bit crazy in immigration for the last like 2 weeks because there's like speculation what countries are going to be added and then people trying to like quickly file things. So I have a couple that about a month ago had come to me and the girl wanted to file a fiance visa. So a K-1 visa is a fiance visa. And when you come into the United States with a fiance visa, you have 90 days to get married and then file for the green card. It's not like people use it to come in and have a trial run and decide. They come in and they get married and they file the green card. And so that's what she'd wanted to do for her boyfriend, who I think she met online. And he's from Afghanistan, but he's living in Pakistan as a refugee. And I had to tell her, like, well, we can't file a fiance visa because there's a travel ban. No visas are being issued to people from these 19 countries, but there is an exception for spouses of U.S. citizens. So I was like, if you guys get married, then we could try that. And so there was a lot of concern about how she was going to do that because he can't, I guess, I don't know a lot about this, but I guess it was hard for him to leave Pakistan. Like the Pakistani government was not letting refugees. So for a while, she was like, maybe we'll meet in Brazil and get married. Or she ends up going there. They get married. She comes back and we file the paperwork. When you have a couple who are not living in the same country, the way that you're going to approve their relationship is going to be a lot of communications. So it's a lot of photos and text messages. And I always tell people that one of my favorite parts of my job is looking at the evidence. Like I love to look at the photos, but the text messages, like I have to read like line by line because if there's anything in there that might like raise a suspicion, like I have to know and take it out. So I'll go through and it's sometimes people will like cut off the text message where it starts to get like, I don't know, friskier and it'll just like end. And I'm like, I don't need to know what happens on the next page. And then sometimes people will just like fully submit
everything.
Their intimate text messages. And I'm like, well, I guess that proves a real relationship. I've had a couple submit like a whole text message fight. And I was like, I don't know why you submitted this fight, but it feels like it shows a real relationship because you're actually fighting about stuff. And maybe that was the rationale. But I'm like 6 pages into this fight taking a side, right? Like, and I was like, no, I think.
Do you remember what the fight was about?
Vaguely something with a work. I don't know, but like with a work without the actual details, I'm like, I was like inferring what I think happened, like something with like a coworker and like some sort of, I don't know if there was like a suspicion.
It was like
involved,
a jealousy thing. It was like a jealousy,
sort of like a jealousy thing. And I was like, no, that's fair. You know, and I'm reading through these text messages. I'm like invested in these people's relationship because I'm, 50 pages deep in their WhatsApp chat.
Wow, this would be like my favorate part of the job too. I can't believe you get to do that.
It's kind of like world building. Like you're like, oh, we're gonna like do some pictures and some text and like build a whole.
So I'll talk to a couple for like several weeks before if I didn't meet them on Zoom, and sometimes people have their cameras off, right? And so then they start taking photos, and I get to put like faces to these people I've been talking to for weeks, and that's kind of fun too. I think that the family-based side of immigration is really rewarding. It feels very human. There's a lot of connection there. So it is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But that's when I said that I don't take on cases that I don't feel like are real. I know if they're real because I'm way deep in their personal life. Because I'm looking at all of these photos and these text messages and letters from their parents to them. And so you get a real sense of who they are.
Yeah. Do you want to switch gears to us, Maxson?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So Maxson has German citizenship, as well as U.S. citizenship.
Is that through your parents?
My grandfather's a refugee, Jewish refugee who fled Germany when he was 8 during World War II, during the Holocaust. Through that connection, I was able to get German citizenship.
As we've talked about marriage, I don't think either of us are like obsessed with the institution of marriage, always wanted to be married, have like deep connections to the desire to be like husband and wife. Well, obviously we really love each other and want to spend our life together, but this has become like kind of the most, this would be really great for our life thing that could happen through marriage.
Yeah, like a logistical benefit.
Just open up another area of the world to live in and work in, and just like more freedom to move about the world should we get married.
Okay.
But we don't know, do I get it automatically? Does it depend on the country? Do you never get anything automatically? Do you get everything automatically?
So it definitely depends on the country. And I looked into it, obviously, for you, if you wanted to get German citizenship. So if you guys decided that you wanted to go live in Germany and become a German citizen, you would first be getting permanent residence or their legal residence. And so to do that, you would have to show that you're married. You have to prove that you're married to a German citizen, that you have a place to live in Germany. You have to show like basic language skills. They say that you can waive those if your spouse lives in Germany and can provide support. So depending on, like if you went for a visit and then while you were there decided to register and become a legal resident and he was already living there and supporting you, then they might waive the language part of it, but it's just like basic. And then after you would have that legal residence for 3 years and you've been married for 2, do I have that right? German citizen for 2 and married for 3, I think. Again, legal disclaimer, like I'm not a German lawyer. Then you'd be able to apply for your German citizenship. Not like you automatically get German citizenship, but you have a pathway, which not everybody else would.
And citizenship allows you to live there indefinitely, not have to leave every however many months for visa purposes.
Yeah.
Are we limited to Germany? Like, do the Schengen territories play a role here? Like, is there optionality of?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Do you know, Maxson, like if your German citizenship allows you any special privileges?
Hold, please. Let me ask my best friend Claude.
Please hold.
AI. I am a German citizen. Can I live and work anywhere in the EU? We'll start with that, and then we'll see if my spouse can do the same thing. Yes, as a German citizen, you have the right to live and work anywhere in the European Union. This is one of the core freedoms of EU citizenship, the freedom of movement and residence. I have a right to work, right to reside. I get equal treatment. And my family members, even if they're non-EU citizens, usually can join you and may also gain residence rights. The EU countries where this applies includes all 27 member states: Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, Czechia, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Greece, Hungary, Ireland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, and Sweden. This freedom also extends to Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland.
Options.
The main practical requirement, though, is that if you're not working, you may need to show you have sufficient resources and health insurance to avoid becoming a burden on the host country's social system. But this is rarely an issue for those who are employed or people who are making a podcast about marriage. Whoa! That's crazy they have that.
They said that?
The situation for unmarried partners is less straightforward than for spouses, though. Unmarried partners who are just in a relationship, even a long-term one, don't have an automatic right to join you under EU law. So I guess what we're learning, Emily, is I have total freedom of work and movement, provided I can show resources or have a job. And in order for you to gain that benefit, we would have to be married. So,
yeah. But the fact that it gives you the option of everywhere in the EU is certainly more engaging than just having it be Germany.
Yep.
Like if the question is, do we get married or not based on just Germany? I don't know. But having access to all of the EU makes it, I think, a bigger benefit.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. We learned a lot with Julia today.
Interesting.
That's a lot of options.
That's a lot of options. All right. Well, lucky us.
Yes. So depending on what happens in the US, might be more appealing than not.
Yeah. Okay. Other thing I wanted to ask about, just shooting back to the love test for a second.
Yeah.
They're doing all this proving of like a real relationship, but there are many cultures where before you get married, you really don't have much of a relationship. Yeah, speak for a little bit about like arranged marriages and the love test and proving that they have a real relationship when they actually don't by our definition.
Yeah, so for countries where that's like culturally the norm, in those cultures, as long as they usually have photos of these like, week-long ceremonies and all of this stuff. They're not really scrutinizing as much that there's not some of the other evidence that you would see because it's such like a standard cultural practice. So being in an arranged marriage doesn't mean that they will like automatically deny it, but usually like it comes out as part of the process. There's a disclosure that it was an arranged marriage, but that doesn't mean that it won't be a real marriage. But I think it's an interesting caveat to this whole sort of love test where other couples are having to prove like all of this, like really intimate, like romantic love, right? Where you're not going to necessarily have that with the arranged marriage, but our government this far sort of recognizes that as acceptable because it's so widespread in those countries.
So the same officers are looking at like the sort of puritanical, not even holding hands before like getting married, pictures of the wedding. And they're also looking at like the dirty sext messages of like other people. Like it gets all part of the same thing.
I mean, they don't require that. They certainly see them because that's the text messages some people will submit.
Mm-hmm.
I think all relationships look different, but unfortunately the way that our government operates is they're not, I don't think, applying like an individual perspective to each case.
Yeah. So
maybe they don't have the time and the resources to really investigate each individual couple and get to know them. They ask pretty like standard questions of every single couple and they're like checking boxes. Like, do you meet these things?
Yeah. If you invented the test, Julia, like what would the test be for you? What's your definition of a quote unquote real relationship?
Oh, wow. That's a deep question. I think that I would want to see a level of friendship that they are integrated into each other's lives. Do you know their friends and family? Like, do you spend time together? Do you, commonalities? Do you have shared interests? What do you do for fun? I wouldn't be as interested in like, is he listed on your car insurance?
Mm-hmm.
I tell people all the time that my husband and I would never have gotten a green card because I'm a big...
You would have failed this.
I don't have his last name. We have separate joint, like bank accounts. Like I don't do any of that. And I'm like, on paper, they would be like, this is not a real marriage because we have separate health insurance. Like we've always kept our stuff separate. And I'm like, I don't meet any of these traditional tests. So I think that the problem is we haven't had meaningful immigration reform in like 40 years. So the standards that we're using are not modern by any means. And so they've updated certain things where like now they'll look through your social media, but they haven't relaxed other requirements like commingling of finances, which is like practically speaking, maybe not the best idea for everybody, especially if you've got a couple where one person has like tremendous student loan debt or other things. Like the couple may want to keep that separate for completely practical, financially intelligent reasons. And they shouldn't have to commingle just for a green card. Yeah. So I think that they should update the test to look at more modern approaches to marriage. Not necessarily like if you don't have joint utility bills, you're not clearly in a real marriage.
Yeah, Maxson, what would you do if you had to make the rules on this?
Yeah. Well, for me and Emily, like what is our relationship? Like, I think the thing that makes us have a special bond is not that we have a sexual relationship, that we have a nice sexual relationship. It's not that we have mutual like friends and stuff, though we have many mutual friends. It's not that we have mutual interests, though we have many mutual interests. It's like I feel that I'm her biggest fan cheerleader. I'm like her son and her dad at the same time. I'm like both taking care of her and being taken care of. Like there's a lot of attention being paid to each other and a lot of care being paid to each other. That is more than other people. And I think if I were to start spending more time and more care with like a different person and that overshadowed what I was doing with her, that would feel like I was more in a relationship with that person than Emily. So I think it's like a time and attention thing.
Like a priority.
So I think if I could like prove time and attention, yeah, like I don't think if I was the government, I would be like, show me if you're sending nudes to each other, which is what the government's doing right now, which is crazy. I'd be like, I don't know, let me audit your week and see how many, you know what I mean? Like
when something bad happens to you, who's the first person you call?
Yeah.
Like when you got good news, who did you want to tell first? Like those are the things that's your person, not necessarily like whose name is on your utility bill. Like some of these people, like they're on their parents' plan still, you know what I mean? I'm like, what does a cell phone bill show?
Yeah. But then to your point, Maxson, like that person could be your best friend and maybe you just never fell in love, or you have a partner who's like a like intellectual sparring partner with you and you like happen to own a house together, but like the first person you call when something happens is your best friend. Like who gets to decide why your husband is priority in the...
Totally.
I remember a Trevor Noah bit where he was like, He was at a wedding and he's single and he's like sitting at a table with some guy who got a +1 and they started dating like a month ago. And he was like, why the fuck is this random woman here who's like definitely not going to be in our life forever? This is not going to last, I can tell. And I couldn't bring my best friend who I've known for like 25 years and we spent every minute together. Like,
Yeah.
it's just these.
The priority of like romantic love.
All right, Julia, based on our conversation and knowing what you know about all that you know and what you know about us, do you think that we should get married?
So originally I was like, not for German citizenship because I think it's going to be kind of a burden. But I don't know, with the added benefit of being able to get residence in, all of the EU, I think that's a benefit. So if that's something you're serious about, that's certainly like a check in the get married column. If you take that out of it, I think that, I love love. I am married and I'm happily married and but I don't think you necessarily need a piece of paper to tether you to someone that you want to spend your life with. So if you're looking purely at logistical reasons or other considerations to sway you one way or the other, I think in this context, it matters how much you think that you might want to not live in the US, because there's certainly a benefit there that you would be able to get residency in the EU.
Yeah, amazing. This was a super awesome conversation. And thanks for bringing so much energy and like personal stories about, I think everything you shared like brought all these things to life. And it can be a dry topic and you've made it super engaging and human and interesting.
Well, happy to have been here. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Julia. You rock.
Thank you so much, Julia. That was an awesome interview and really helpful for us. And also just particularly fascinating to learn about the love test, which I find super unusual. And for some reason, I am obsessed with hearing about it. So I was thinking maybe, Max, and I could ask you a couple questions that might be on a love test.
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay. There's one unusual item on the side pocket of our car door on the right, on the passenger side, and it lives there.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah, you keep a candle there in the side door. And it's not even a scented candle. So it's not even like
Yes,
it's not really.
It
I've
makes
smelled
the
it.
car smell very nice.
It doesn't really have a smell to it.
Unbelievably scented. It's one of the most scented candles of all time. That's the point. Even without being lit, it is scenting.
I feel that it's not scented. I feel that
you would fail. You would fail. You would fail. You would fail. You would fail.
I would fail. All right, Emily, what's something that if you were in the room being interrogated about our love, what's like a primary source or thing from our relationship that you would show to them to prove our love is real?
I would show pictures and videos from our life. I would show text messages from various parts of our relationship. What would you show to prove our love?
Oh, thanks so much for asking, Emily. I would show our many-page long Google Doc called the bit list.
That's a really good one.
Which maybe, Emily, you can explain what the bit list is.
The bit list started right when we first began dating.
Immediately, like day 2 of us knowing each other.
Yeah. We went to the Comedy Cellar in New York, and there was a funny line that one of the comedians said, and we started saying it a lot. And then we wrote it down, and then we started writing down every little joke and inside bit that we had. And now it is like many pages and hundreds of bits. That is like a record of our relationship.
And also, by the way, no one else would ever find it funny. Like, we've attempted reading the bit list out to people to see if they would like
it sucks.
Resonate. It always fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading through it. I actually would cringe to like read any of this stuff out loud, but it is, I'll say how many entries it is long right now. It is 464 entries wrong.
Wrong.
Long. 464 entries long. And some of the most recent ones, 458, it's Emily going, "Come on, Mackie, let's have a tickle fight." In like a super weird voice, in like a weird
like earnest 6-year-old.
Earnest, but like very slow, almost like a horror movie. 460. Emily thinking that the movie Star Wars is called A Star Is Wars. See, it's not funny when I read that.
Star Wars.
It says, well, no, this is A Star Is Wars.
That's a different one.
461. What drug are you on? Sycophant. This isn't funny. It's not funny when you read it out. Emily, when you were really, really tired, we were on a plane. You go, "I'm smart, I'm pretty, I'm funny, and I'm a little bit goofy." Okay, the last 434 is, "You are an energy executive working at an energy company, and you make everyone salute to you. And every time they salute to you, you have to say, 'Zap.'" Yeah. It's really not funny to explain to anyone. It's just
It's
totally
really,
not funny.
really bad. But like they were so funny in the moment.
They're funny between us now. It's like only funny for us. It's really like, it's not just unfunny for other people, but it's like nauseating for other
It's like
people.
unpleasant. Yeah.
It's unpleasant.
Okay. Back to Julia.
So yeah, we would pass the love test if
Yeah,
we were grilled
with flying
on the
colors.
bit list, because we both understand. We could explain it. But the idea of like a government worker being like, so what did you mean by LeBron James? And then you being like, oh, it's like LeBron James, but like if he was French. So Emily, when you wrote my ass heat, my ass heat, my ass heat cooked the pasta and sang it in a sort of a song, I would get that too. But the idea of a government worker understanding our relationship to the point where he has to figure out if we're on the same page about these things.
Yeah. So now that we know that we would pass, let's talk about some takeaways from this interview. We learned a lot about EU residency and what it would take for me to get on your citizenship train.
Yeah. Like I feel like the biggest takeaway is if we get married, it's so much easier for you to get EU residency. If we don't get married, it's possible for you to get EU residency, but it's like a huge pain in the ass. You essentially then have to pass the love test of another country.
Yeah.
So Emily, after our conversation with Julia and learning what you learned, is this conversation a drop into the let's get married bucket or a drop into the let's stay unmarried bucket?
I think this is possibly the biggest drop into the let's get married bucket, and having more freedom and flexibility on where to live and work and spend time. And especially as we become more and more unhappy and uncomfortable with the state of our country, and maybe want to raise kids with better healthcare and better systems around education and whatnot. It just feels nice to have this option. So I feel this is quite a huge marriage plus for me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. This is a drop into the let's get married bucket for sure. Very helpful for you getting EU residency. And that's 27 countries or so. Like we could live and work in any of those countries together. That's pretty big.
It was awesome to talk to Julia. Julia rocks. This was super fun to pick her brain and learn more about citizenship and the love test and lots of stuff like that. And on the next episode, you'll hear.
With us being polyamorous from the get-go, we've really learned how to function as a team. It really highlights for me that marriage is beyond just sex.
Should We Get Married is an original series by Easily Wowed and Bad Cooley Productions. This episode was created by me, Maxson and
And me, Emily Carter.
and our producer, Ramoy Phillip.
Theme music is the song Fake Romantic by the band Melt. Logo and brand design by Madeline Vogue.
Sound design and mixing by Ramoy Phillip. And if you know someone in need of immigration law support, you can reach out to Julia on Instagram at immigrationlawprof.
There are so many of you out there who are asking these same questions, and we don't have to all investigate marriage on our own. Subscribe to Should We Get Married and learn with us as we make our decision.
See you next time.
Fake romantic. You told me